Perfect. You can hear me, right?
Yeah, you sound good.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining in for this session. I love a good, chaotic virtual conference for your Wednesday. Kudos for all of you for joining and just like taking all of the risks that come with doing virtual stuff. I think we should be pros at this by now, but it always just feels like it gives me anxiety. So glad to have you here for this session. What we're going to hopefully do today for you is give you a quick overview of who MCAN is, but spend the vast majority of the time talking to you about what I hope and what I think is the most relevant sort of here and now things that are happening and ways that you could engage with us and that we could support you. If we missed the mark in something you were hoping to hear or want to engage with us on, we'll make sure you have our contact information and we will get that to you. So again, I'm Jamie Jacobs, Deputy Director for the Michigan College Access Network, and I'm joined by Jordan Baah-Sackey, who is a consultant with the organization, and she will talk to you today as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Really quick for folks that are brand new to us or just need a quick reminder, our mission is to increase college readiness, participation, and completion. And we're particularly focused where we see the biggest gaps, opportunities for low-income students, first-generation college-going students, and students of color. We're a statewide intermediary organization, meaning we do not work directly with students. We spend all of our time working with folks like you, community leaders, and direct service providers, and making sure we're equipping you and assisting you to make sure that you can have what you need and all of the information, tools, and resources to do the best work with students and on behalf of students. I mentioned this in my commercial. I think you all were there. You know, it's the fun of not seeing all of your faces, but we really see college access as an equity, a solution to creating a more equitable place, a more equitable state. Equity is at the core of everything we do, and we really think by increasing access to post-secondary opportunities and changing the systems, dismantling and rebuilding systems that are meant to support equitable outcomes, that we can actually empower populations and communities and generations to come and have a more equitable state and nation. A few quick, before I do, we have a new slide. This is a new slide, and that's how I forgot it was there. We are focused on these 3 E's, education, equity, and empowerment. Hopefully the education is a no-brainer. We're focused on increasing the percent of Michiganders with certificates and degrees, and we really see that as a prerequisite for success in Michigan's knowledge-based economy. I've talked to you a bit about the equity imperative of this work. We are focused at the end of the day on changing systems to make sure that equitable opportunities exist. And equitable opportunities exist when we hyper-focus our support, our resources, and our tools on populations that have not received the support historically. And then lastly, we really think this work is about empowering individuals. We see ourselves as agents of change ourselves, but really in activating you and others as agents of change in your communities, and hope to develop your capacity and invest in you so that Michigan residents can inevitably access post-secondary education, attain that certificate and degree, and have access to economic independence. We have 4 quick belief statements that I'm going to go over. I think when most organizations talk about these, I just sort of like, oh my gosh, who wants to hear these things? But I think what it does and why I think it's important for us is that it makes sure that you and I are using the same language. So when I say things like college, you're internalizing correctly what we mean when we're talking about college. And we'd love for you to sort of embrace the use of the word and the definition and terminology as well. But at the very least, you know what we're saying when we we say it. So we define college as post-secondary education. Hopefully you heard this in my couple minutes earlier, but I think we can't say this enough to adults. We usually have to say it one time to students and they sort of believe it. We have to say it more than once to adults. We have a lot of different values and beliefs that we hold as individuals and communities that play into the how words are utilized and interpreted. We think college is post-secondary education, and we use the word college to refer to education beyond high school that is inclusive of post-secondary certificates and degrees. So this is academic certificates, credit-bearing certificates, certificates that sometimes we say post-secondary with dual enrollment, early middle college programs. Sometimes they're achieved while in secondary. So those two. But at the end of the day, associate degrees, bachelor's degrees, professional degrees, and inclusive also of those post-secondary certificates. We know those hold value in the labor market. The second is that college is a necessity. I'm going to show you just a couple pieces of data, but if you ever needed any more case-making data, I'm your girl. I'm so happy to give you all the data you need. It is clear pre-COVID, it will also be clear as we talk about some of the data around economic recovery, that post-secondary education not only dramatically increases an individual's economic independence, it also is what will move a state into a more prosperous economy and inevitably right now get us out of an economic downturn. Michigan is no longer a manufacturing-based economy. We are a knowledge-based economy. We saw that shift start to happen during our last recession with the crash of the auto industry. We've recovered from that from an economic standpoint, and the way we have recovered transformed the jobs that exist in our communities, and it really moved us into this knowledge-based economy. College has then become a necessity. The next is that college is for everyone. I've mentioned this a couple times. I'm harping on it on purpose, but we really work towards and are dedicated to changing the systems that we know perpetuate the inequities that we see and that play out in our communities and in people's lives every day. There are no doubt incredible inequities that exist in the entire pipeline of education, and those really are incredibly prevalent when we look at and apparent when we look at college access and college success outcomes in our communities. And then the last belief statement is that college is a public good. It's very, very easy to say that college is a private good. The more you learn, the more you earn is sort of the statement that folks have said, I feel like now for a decade. That is true, and that maintains to be true in the aggregate. No doubt there are some specific anecdotes you could point to where that is not true, but that is very, very true and becoming even more starkly true every year. But it is also true that post-secondary attainment is a public good in the sense that if you are not well educated, but you are fortunate enough to live in a well-educated community, let's say Ann Arbor, Michigan, you benefit by living in that community that has a high educational attainment. There's a high tax base, which means if I need to rely on social support programs, there's funding to support those programs. It also means that there's people who have the finances to invest in a local economy. So there's a downtown business infrastructure. It means there's more opportunities for entrepreneurship. Small businesses thrive in those communities. Democracy thrives because people vote and volunteer in highly educated communities, whether or not they themselves are highly educated. And it's also, when we look at health outcomes, the more highly educated a community is, the less likely there are to be high rates of smoking or high rates of obesity. There's more preventative healthcare opportunities that folks are engaging in. So we see these sort of positive externalities directly correlated to increases in educational attainment. And for those reasons, we think, yes, it is a private good, but it also really is a public good. And we see it as important for our communities as well. So all of the work we do is in support of our big goal and actually the state's big goal. So hopefully you're familiar with 60 by 30, a goal that was originally set by Governor Whitmer in her first State of the State, which has now actually been adopted by the Michigan legislature as Michigan's goal to increase the percent of Michigan residents with degrees and certificates to 60% by the year 2030. It seems like 2030 is a long way away. I also thought 2020 would never come. I also thought year 2000, right, would never come, and here we are. So it will be right around the corner before we know it, and we've got a long way to go. I'm going to talk to you a little bit here about some data. Again, I think it's just helpful as we think about what the narrative is and how we talk to each other about what's happening in communities to really inspire us to do this work. The first piece of data I always like to share is why 60% by 2030. The reality is that the projections are that right now, more than 70% of jobs in Michigan require formal post-secondary ed. Again, that is certificates and degrees, more than 70%. So why is the goal 60% by 2030? Because we're still a long way out from 60%. We're sitting right now at about 45% of Michiganders with a post-secondary certificate or a degree. And we see that play out in job opportunities and access to employment, and especially access to employment that provides a median income wage, which allows folks to provide for their families. So the goal is 60 by 30, which is again a long shot, but is based on labor market projections that we know for current times. There has not yet been new labor market projections due to the pandemic. So what you're looking at here, I said to you earlier, and I also said in my commercial, that in history, it has been true, every economic recession that Michigan and the nation has faced, the way out of it has been educational attainment and increases and an increased need in education. What you're looking at here is the employment by educational attainment since all the way back to 1989. And what you see in those sort of bars that are columns is the last three, soon to be a fourth, likely economic recession. We're going to zoom in on the most recent. I feel like it's the most relevant. We all experienced it. We all lived through it. And I think it just tells a particular narrative that we all remember experiencing. So when we look at the most recent recession, what we see is that there was dramatic job loss for folks with high school diplomas or less. And there was also pretty significant job loss for folks with associates and some college. Also, what falls into that category are post-secondary certificate holders, to be clear. What we also saw was actually job gain for bachelor's degree holders during the recession. It's sort of a phenomenon that often happens. But what we also saw post the recession, and what we have continued to see in the recovery, is that there has been exponential growth in job opportunities for bachelor's degree holders and beyond. There has been a full recovery and additional jobs for associate degree holders, which in some college and certificate holders in the orange there. And then what we have continued to see has been continual and significant job loss for high school diploma holders or less. This does not mean there are not job opportunities. What it means is there are job opportunities and there are job openings, but there is not growth and there is not new jobs. There's what the business folks call job like churn. Someone leaves and we got to fill that butt, right? We need 15 cashiers to keep Meijer open, and someone left, so we have a job posting for a cashier. That's churn versus business is booming and we need to make sure that we're bringing in additional staff, job growth. So there has not yet been a recovery for folks with a high school diploma or less from the most recent recession in 2008 to about 2010. And it does not look like that will change, and it looks like that will get worse here in the coming years. I think I have, so yeah, that's where you can see, sorry, the zoom in of that recent recession and recovery. If you like really want to see those numbers, again, $8.4 million jobs for bachelor's degree holders gained in the recovery, 3.1 million for associate and degree holders, certificate holders, and folks with some college. And then that dramatic job loss of 5.6 million jobs, and of that, only 80,000 have been recovered. So, and still incredible job loss. I have a couple more slides here. I've mentioned a few times wage, median income wage. Wage is particularly important to us as an organization for a couple reasons. But what I want to show you is what is still very, very true, and what continues to become sort of more true. And I say this often, especially to folks in education, because it isn't always true about folks in education. We have lots of folks in education, especially in our public schools and our K-12 settings or at large with master's degrees, who will often say, man, there's folks with an associate's degree or maybe a certificate that are earning more than me. That may be true and is true in some really isolated circumstances. But what is very apparent in the aggregate is that your likelihood of involuntary unemployment is incredibly low, and it's decreasing as your educational attainment rises, and your wage increases also fairly dramatically as your educational attainment increases. This is about you as an individual. The reason why I think this is particularly important, we talk about on the next slide, for folks that are familiar with the ALICE reports that are done, which looks at asset limited, income constrained individuals across the nation, and we highlight Michigan in that every year. This report is led by the United Way. It's meant to shed some light on the realities of poverty, that making sure policymakers and just the average person like us doing this work have a sense of what poverty really looks like in our communities. We know that there's a relatively small percentage in Michigan, right around 14% of Michiganders live in poverty by the federal definition. Whenever I talk to community members like you all, you will say far more of my community is living in poverty, and that is incredibly accurate, and that is exactly what this report tries to illustrate. In Michigan, it's actually 43% of Michigan's population, this is individuals and households, cannot afford basic household necessities. 43% living in poverty, not below the federal poverty threshold, but at the end of the day, living in poverty, that even when taking advantage of all the available social support programs that exist, if they're able to navigate all of those incredibly bureaucratic systems, they still cannot meet a basic household necessity budget, 43%. I know you feel this in your communities. I know that you work with these students and families every day. And the reality is we need to have some tough conversations with folks about wage. Wage matters. And the way we make sure wage is a part of the conversation is we talk about it. And we also talk about how wage is correlated with educational attainment. There are job opportunities, like I said, for folks with high school diplomas or less. There are less and less of those job opportunities. But what is also true in those job opportunities is it's very unlikely that those jobs provide a living wage. Typically, those jobs may provide $12 or $13 an hour. And right now in Michigan, $13 an hour is poverty. I think we need to be honest with people about that. Job opportunities are great, but how are we also talking about employment and education to make sure that those opportunities change for that individual over time? I think I have a couple more data slides here. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the hot jobs that Michigan does. This has been out for several years. Every 2 years, the Department of Technology Management and Budget updates projections for jobs that are growing in demand and provide a median income wage or above. Again, jobs that would put someone above that ALICE threshold. Right now, projections through 2026 are that 86% of those jobs require formal learning past high school, certificates and degrees, and 72%, a dramatic, huge slice of those require a bachelor's degree or more. So it's important that we're having these conversations with young people, but also adults in our community as we look to talk to folks about programs like Michigan Reconnect, which launched just last week. I wanted to give a quick plug that there is sort of hot jobs done regionally as well. So no surprise, there are some dramatic differences in what the job categories are and what the needs are by region. So make sure you take a look at those. Those are updated every 2 years as well. So this year we will see an update of the regional hot job projections. Thank you, Christy, for dropping that link in. Those are incredibly helpful and useful. I don't think I would print them and hand them to students and assume they can make their way through them. I don't think most adults can make their way through them, but I think they're an incredibly helpful tool to utilize alongside trained adults like you all to have meaningful conversations with families, adults looking to increase their education, and also students. The last data slide, I'm pretty sure, Jordan can correct me if I'm wrong, is just to give some perspective. I have found that folks have a hard time understanding, like, where are we and where do we need to get? What you're looking here are 2 donut charts. Most folks say donut charts are like the worst thing to put in front of the average person, but I think you all are above average people, and I think these are helpful, at least in my head. So what you're looking at on the left is our current educational attainment. I realize it is not 2018. These statistics lag. And then what you're looking at on the right side is the educational need from an economic standpoint right now. And what you'll see as dramatic differences between the two is that we need a dramatic increase in the percent of our population that holds a certificate as their terminal credential, meaning they haven't gone on to stack education on top of that, maybe an associate's or a bachelor's degree. But we also need some increase and maintaining of every other category, associate, bachelor's, and beyond. What we need is dramatic reduction in folks that are starting and stopping. You see that in that like mint color there. And we also need less folks never starting, meaning more folks need to move into these pathways and not stop at a high school diploma, or maybe not even achieve a high school diploma. What I think is important here is that no doubt we need to talk about how do we get students and adults into these somewhat fast track certificate pathways that give access to median and high paying jobs with 6 months, a year, 2 years, sometimes more, depending on what it is of training and education. But how do we have meaningful conversations around match and fit? What pathway is best for all students and for each student? And how do we make sure that students have options? So like I said earlier, every student has an opportunity and they can make choices. They can choose which pathway they'd like to pursue. And which one is the best fit for them sort of academically, but also from a social and financial standpoint as well. So that's what I've got for an intro and data. Jordan's going to take it away here and talk to you about some ways in which we think you could engage with us and we could help support you in the short term. And then, of course, we'll hang out for any questions that you all might have.
Thanks, Jamie. Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us. Like Jamie said, I'm Jordan Baah-Sackey, currently consulting with MCAN, and excited to share with you about a couple opportunities that are really you're able to implement them in your building. They're supportive of students and continue to build on 60 by 30 across Michigan. So first, we're going to hear about College Bound Michigan, and then we'll hear about College Board Opportunity Scholarships, and then hear about how you can blend those two programs pretty seamlessly into your buildings and your existing structures. So College Bound Michigan is a three-part initiative in Michigan statewide that MCAN supports and maintains. And the goal is to increase the number of students completing key steps towards college during their senior year. So we have three unique campaigns throughout CBMI. That's what we call it. So if you hear me mention CBMI, I'm talking about College Bound Michigan. They are Michigan College Month, which is held annually in October. Our College Cash Campaign, which takes place November to March. We also host that with the Governor's FAFSA Challenge, which I'll talk about in a second, and then College Decision Day, which is hosted in April and May. So like I said, Michigan College Month is hosted annually and celebrated in October with the goal of having every graduating senior apply to at least one college. We specifically support helping students find their best match and fit. So what's gonna really work for them? What might work for a student who is their best match and fit is to head off to a traditional four-year university might not work for every student, and we want to make sure that they are finding their best fit that allows them to persist and achieve their college credential or degree. Michigan College Month is also just a celebration of the college application season. We know that students can apply for college beyond October, but really getting them to start and kick off in October is a great way to encourage them and get excited. It also helps build excitement in the school. Part of CBMI is building a college going culture, not just within your senior class, but building it throughout. So even when your eighth graders are coming into ninth grade or wherever your split is from middle school to high school, is that your youngest students in the building are excited and they know that college is an option for them, and start thinking about that early rather than getting to their senior year and say, oh, I got to think about college. We want that to build throughout their years. It's also the kickoff to the opening of the FAFSA for the next academic year. FAFSA opens on October 1st. So it's a great way to kind of blend, these are the steps our seniors need to take to go to college. And we know that students who apply to college are more likely to enroll in college. So even applying to one, if you get a student to apply to GRCC or Mott Community College, right, they are applying to one, and it's more likely they'll go to that one and start their college journey then. College Cash Campaign is a campaign that promotes college affordability through FAFSA completion across Michigan. In 2019, we partnered with the Executive Office of the Governor to host the first annual Governor's FAFSA Challenge to support increasing Michigan's FAFSA completion to 75%. We're in our second annual Governor's FAFSA Challenge and Cash Campaign right now. And like I had mentioned, the whole goal is to increase FAFSA completions across the state and amongst the senior class. And this matters for a couple of reasons. The average FAFSA completion rate in Michigan for the 2018-2019 year was 56%. And we know that Michigan currently ranks 28th out of 50 states in terms of percentage of high schools graduates who file the FAFSA, and we really want to see that number increase. We know that FAFSA completion rates are lower on average in the high poverty districts than in low poverty districts. And as you all know, the FAFSA is the way to unlock the institutional aid and state aid for students. So in Michigan, approximately 48% of students are eligible for Pell Grants. And with the FAFSA completion, it means that 24,800 students who may have been awarded a Pell Grant did not receive them. And that's free money for them to head to college. The average Pell Grant was awarded to a student, is just over $4,000, and that means that Michigan left nearly $100 million in unused federal financial aid on the table. This is money that's available for students, and we want students to access that, and the way to do that is by filing their FAFSA. Like I just said, it's the only way to unlock that Pell Grant, some institutional and community-based financial aid as well. We know that 90% of high school seniors who complete the FAFSA immediately enroll in a post-secondary education program. So if we think about how CBMI blends together, if they've enrolled in one community college or one four-year or a private college, if they have completed one college application and received their admissions there, and then they've completed their FAFSA, they're ready to go. 90% of high school seniors who complete enroll compared to 50% of those who do not complete the FAFSA. Low-income seniors are 127% more likely to enroll in post-secondary education directly after high school compared to their peers who do not complete the FAFSA. And then in 2019, 44% of high school seniors did not complete the FAFSA, and that represents 51,000 seniors who missed out on potential money and opportunities that could have helped with college affordability. So part of our College Cash campaign is we have a couple of expectations for our host sites. That's what we fondly call our schools who participate in CBMI. Our College Cash campaign host sites, we ask them to choose a dedicated FAFSA champion. This is just a person in your building who can really rally around FAFSA completion and take that charge and really work and make dedicated time and effort for it. We've seen schools that have a dedicated FAFSA champion tend to have increased FAFSA completion. There's just somebody who's got their, finger on the pulse of what's going on, what needs to happen, and what strategies to implement to make FAFSA completion happen. Your FAFSA champion will also set a bold goal for FAFSA completion. So we want schools to increase their FAFSA completion to 75% from the governor. That was part of her governor's FAFSA challenge, but we want schools to set a bold goal. So if that means increasing your FAFSA completion by 10% compared to last year, we want you to set that bold goal. And then as part of our expectations for our host site, we also ask that schools systematically track their data, and MCAN provides a couple of free resources that you can use to do that. Our first MCAN resource is the Affordability Tracker, which provides publicly available aggregated data by school. So you can see where your school stands in terms of its individual FAFSA completion, because we have school profiles and charts and graphs and great data that we get from federal student aid to help schools kind of have a gut check on their FAFSA completion. The other resource that's available that is not MCAN related is the My SSG School Counselor Portal. Schools who have a data user agreement on file with My SSG get access to student level data and is available to school staff. And you can use that to track individual school data. And those are two great tools that can be used for schools who are looking to track FAFSA completion. The last component of CBMI is our decision day. This is a great way to celebrate, kind of end the year, celebrate students, where they're headed and what their plans are. So we've plugged into the National Signing Day, which is part of the Reach Higher initiative with Michelle Obama. And annually, Michigan has the most host sites nationally of schools who celebrate Decision Day. So that's a really great opportunity for us to be a leader in this work and have our schools take charge and be leaders nationally as well. It was inspired by the NCAA Signing Day, where students, sign and commit where they're going to go to play sports. And we wanted to have that opportunity for students who are not going to play sports. If you're going to college, it's a huge deal, and we want to celebrate that. So we're celebrating student success and commitment to post-secondary education. This also helps build the college-going culture among younger students. We often encourage and find that our sites are hosting whole school assemblies. Some schools host even with their kindergartners all the way up, or they have their seniors walk through their kindergarten buildings and high five in their cap and gown. And that helps build college going culture. The kindergartners and younger students can see, oh, wow, I want to do this someday. So we can really start building college going culture at a young age through Decision Day events. So we like to host these on May 1st or a date near May 1st that suits your school best. And it can be hosted by the school or community. As part of our college going culture building work, we also try and include communities because we know that it doesn't just take a high school, it really does take a village and a community to help build all of this culture. So it can look a couple of different ways, in-school events or virtual. We shifted everything to virtual last year, which was really unique and innovative for our sites to kind of pivot and still commit to recognizing their seniors. We recognize all seniors for their post-secondary plans, regardless of if they're going to get a credential or if they are headed to a 2-year or a 4-year, if they're headed in-state or out of state. Again, we're supporting best match and fit for the students and encouraging and reminding students to make a decision. Oh, decision day is coming up. Do you know what you're going to do? Prompting students to say, yeah, I'm committed to going to Muskegon Community College, West Shore Community College. I'm committed to going to Grand Valley or Davenport. And then celebrating college enrollment and their accomplishments throughout the year. They've completed a college application, they filed the FAFSA, and now they get to go and on top of all the other great things that the seniors are doing throughout the year. Again, with the college going culture, and then with students publicly stating their decision, with whether that's them getting up and saying, I'm going here, or having a big display board with where they're headed. It can kind of hold them accountable. They write it down, they say it out loud, they share that with their friends, and it can hold them accountable in 6 months when their friends are like, oh, hey, how was your first semester? When they see them again at Christmas. I think it's a great way for them to say, oh yeah, I'm here, I'm still here, and I'm gonna keep going until I complete my degree. So schools celebrate with assemblies, guest speakers, breakfast ceremony, part of an existing school event. There's social media campaigns. We had some great videos that got put out last year with students sharing. There was a lot of really cool TikToks that students did they had their high school gear on and then did their thing on TikTok and then dropped, and then they had their college gear on. And that was really fun for us to see students really take ownership of that and use new social media platforms. I don't know how to use TikTok, but those students really used it, and that was great. And then another thing we've seen in kind of a pivot with the current pandemic is schools and communities putting yard signs out. We know that was going on before, but we really saw an uptick in those types of celebrations, which help build community support for college going culture. So we're going to shift and talk about the College Board Opportunity Scholarships. I'll just briefly go over these in the interest of our time. So College Board committed $5 million in scholarships to college planning each year. There are scholarships that range from $500 to $40,000, with half of those scholarships being designated for students whose families earn less than $60,000 per year. Students earn chances at these scholarships by completing key steps, a little bit different, but very similar to the CBMI steps. And then scholarships are awarded through drawings. What's great about College Board Opportunity Scholarships is it's welcome to all students. It does not matter GPA, test scores, citizenship status, or family income. If you are a graduating senior and you complete these steps, you can get entered and be eligible for these scholarships. The opportunity scholarships help simplify the college planning process and then rewards effort that seniors take and juniors, and promotes practice for the SAT. It doesn't require an application or an essay. It's just about these students taking action steps that they are likely taking already to encourage them to really buckle down early on college planning. So there are 6 steps. 3 are taken in the junior year and 3 are taken in the senior year. So the first 3, building a college list, practicing for the SAT, and exploring scholarships, are all 3 steps that students take throughout their junior year. And then when they get to their senior year, strengthening that college list, completing the FAFSA, and applying for college. And all of those scholarships are worth $500. And then if a student completes all 6 steps, they are registered to win a $40,000 scholarship. And there are multiple of those. And as you can see, multiple of these smaller scholarships as well that get awarded to students by just doing things that you're likely implementing in your building already, encouraging them to practice for the SAT or looking at colleges. So it's a great way to provide opportunity for your students with what they're doing. So we're going to talk about how we can blend both CBMI and College Board Opportunity Scholarships. Here's the calendar for College Board Opportunity Scholarships, excuse me. So as you can see, it starts in January of the junior year. So this is something you could really likely implement now in your building as the eligibility window opens through June for building your college list, and then practicing for the SAT goes well into October of the senior year, which would start right around September. So there's still time for you to encourage your juniors to get in on these scholarship opportunities and start earning money early for college. And also with CBMI, so CBMI kicks off in October with College Bound Michigan Month, and there are scholarship opportunities available for students to kind of overlap those two, which exploring scholarships, strengthening their college list, and completing the FAFSA, as well as applying to college. So encouraging students to build on these CBOS steps with what you're doing for CBMI as well, including completing the FAFSA. Like I said, if students complete all 6 steps, they're eligible for $40,000. And there are 25 winners announced every March. So MCAN has created a junior planning guide, which is a unique implementation guide that you can use and take. And it is a calendar that covers the College Board Opportunity Scholarships and overlays them with CBMI. So that's taking the steps that you would need in the junior year from January to July through the senior year, which we split it August to December, and then into the spring of their senior year. And this outlines key steps to be eligible for opportunity scholarships, as well as supports planning for CBMI events with strategies, support, and best practices. So we'll talk a little bit more about these resources. So like I mentioned, the affordability tracker is our free FAFSA data tool for Michigan high schools. You can see your individual school profiles, the number of FAFSAs submitted and completed, as well as compare current academic year to the previous year. And we will very soon be adding the College Board Opportunity Scholarship opt-ins. So you can see how many students at your building just an aggregate number of students have opted into the scholarship. So we'll drop that link in the chat, but it's michigan.fafsatracker.com, and you can head there and check out your school profile and see where your school stands. Currently, just so you know, the grade 12 enrollment on the affordability tracker currently is taken from the school reported junior count from spring of 2020 due to some COVID issues. So please note, if you go to the tracker and you see that your grade 12 enrollment is off, it's because it's the junior count. You can connect with us and we will work to update that for you. You will also see the FAFSA completion data that we pull from federal student aid. So this includes our first-time filing applicants who are no older than 19 at the cutoff date, and then have received their high school diploma at the start of the school year to which they're applying for aid. And then please note that the affordability tracker, all the data you'll see is in the aggregate. We don't provide or have access to student level data to share. If you want to find student level data, you can head to your counselor portal through My SSG. This is what a statewide view looks like. You can check out all the high schools and see some great FAFSA stats, and see kind of where your school stacks up in terms of 12th graders who've completed the FAFSA. And then your school profile is going to look like this, with some great data. What's great about these is you can just print them and share them throughout your building, share them with your administration, share them with your colleagues, and try and really build that awareness around FAFSA completion and then college going culture in your school. We've also created some ready-made, easy-to-use toolkits for easy implementation. We have College Bound Michigan Implementation Guide, which is quite a large guide that has all 3 initiatives, great strategies, tools, resources that you can use to build these programs into your building. We have a cash campaign specific implementation guide, which specifically focuses on cash campaign. And then of course, our College Bound Michigan and College Board Opportunity Scholarships Junior Planning Guide. We also maintain our CBMI Resource Hub, which is a free website that has curated resources for counselors and college access professionals to support college access work. We have Michigan College Month, College Cash Campaign, and Decision Day specific resources, but that includes handbooks, guides, templates, videos. If you need a social media engagement template and don't want to write a Facebook post, we have those resources ready for you. And we'll again drop a couple of these in the chat, and then provide some follow-up too, I think, so you can access these resources. And then I think, Jamie, you were going to talk about these engagement opportunities.
Yeah, and I have dropped all sorts of stuff in the chat. Hopefully that's just enough to be like really overwhelming. Somehow we'll get you these slides, so you don't need to worry about grabbing all of the links out of there. But I know when I listen, sometimes I just want to take a quick peek. I wanted to let folks know about some additional opportunities that we just don't have time to talk to you about today that may be of interest. The first is our Advise Michigan program. Some of you may be familiar with this program or the MSU or U of M College Advising Corps. They are programs that hire recent college graduates and place them in schools to work alongside school counselors to supplement, not supplant, the work of school counselors. If you have interest in learning more about this, we've linked to the website here. We'll also drop it into the chat. We will begin recruiting new high schools to serve as host sites come fall. So you've got plenty of time to think about and plan and strategize about whether or not this is a good fit. And of course, talk to our team about all of those things. Is this a good fit? What does it look like? We can connect you to folks in your area who have hosted advisors, who are currently hosting advisors, so you can learn all about that. We have all sorts of professional development opportunities. The 2 that we highlight here are brand new. We're just launched our 2nd cohort of our Foundations of Equity in College and Career Counseling course. We had 100 students participate in the inaugural semester of this course in the fall. You may have been one of them. And then we've got 150 new folks participating in that course right now. We are hyper-focusing that content on school counselors, but also make sure we have a small number of slots available to folks that are working directly with students on college and career advising, but are not school counselors. But the vast majority of folks in that course are school counselors. And and that is entirely free of charge. It is an opportunity that provides about 35 sketches, state continuing education clock hours in the new buckets that school counselors are required to have hours for renewal every 5 years. Check that out. We'll also drop that link in to the chat as well. The other piece of professional development that I wanted to highlight is newer professional learning community. That's the College and Career Champion professional learning community. We are focused on non-school counselors in this space, folks that don't necessarily have a good network of support or maybe even a base of training that are doing college and career work, or hoping to get more engaged in the conversation. We're specifically recruiting right now teachers and other educators, after school professionals, to engage in that conversation, but others are also welcome. The last thing I wanted to highlight is just some grant opportunities that may also be of interest for you to think about. We have a stream of grant funding specific for high schools or school districts. It's 4 years of funding focused on bringing together a collaborative post-secondary advisory council, looking at student outcome data, college going culture data, and really thinking about policies, programs, practice, systems that need to be changed within our school systems to provide more equitable access to opportunity for college access. That was a really terrible sentence. I apologize. And the other grant opportunity we wanted to flag is our innovative program grants. These grants are wide open in terms of who is eligible. They are a small pot of funding, up to $10,000, but that's you can do a lot with $10,000. So up to $10,000 for innovative work that you are doing or hoping to do. This could be brand new work that you're piloting. It could be the scale of something you've piloted that has shown or proven or sort of demonstrated success, or it could be something that's been happening, say a mentoring program in your school that has been incredibly positive, but you're looking to embed a new component into that around college positive mentoring and in college and career advising. You should look towards this innovative program grant portfolio. It is not meant that you would apply for an IPG every year to support the same program. It's really meant to sort of kickstart, spark, move that work forward that hopefully could be sustained through organizational funds, in your cases, organizational or district funds, or other funds in your community. So we'll drop all of those links here as we open it up for questions in a couple slides for you all to be able to grab. But then again, we'll also make sure you have the slide deck.
And then we want to make sure that you have the date saved for MCAN's annual conference in November 9 through 10. I think the location is still being decided, or has it been confirmed? If not, it's cool. Not yet.
It will either be in Lansing or it will be virtual, just like this.
So save the date for that, and then keep watch on our e-news if you're not signed up, and then our social media as well when registration opens. MCAN also provides a college advising hotline that students can text or call 24/7, but we have some business hours that we hold for that, so students can text or call the hotline, and we have advisors who are staffing it right now and supporting the work of the hotline to answer questions about college applications, FAFSA completion, and just provide additional support for college advising through that hotline. It's a free service, and students who don't want to call or talk to anybody on the phone can text, and if they choose to do that outside of the business hours, then they'll get a response the following day. You can also head to mycollegehelp.com to learn more and get your students connected with that. We're also in the middle of our financial aid webinar updates series. So we're having institution-specific overview webinars from Michigan's post-secondary institutions. We have 2-year and 4-year institutions, as well as public and private, addressing recent changes to financial aid policies and practices. One sketch is available for each webinar in college prep and selection. And we have webinars all the way through the first week of March. We have 2 or 3 a week. So we'll drop the link in the chat for you to register and sign up for those as well. And then lastly, MCAN is putting out a student survey to help bridge the gap between students and colleges and universities, a gap that's been created by the pandemic. So it allows students to submit their information to be recruited by colleges and universities in Michigan. Students who submit their survey before March 1st will be entered in a drawing to win one of 8 $50 Amazon gift cards. And we encourage you to share this with your students so they can get connected with schools. We'll also drop this link in the chat. And if you have questions about the survey, you can connect with Kirsten Nolan at MCAN, and her email is right there. And we'll drop the link to make sure you're signed up for our e-news so you can stay connected with all of MCAN's happenings and then also hear about what our partners are doing as well. And so we have a little bit of time for questions and discussion. Would love to answer any questions that you have and yeah, open the floor up. And we'll put our emails there as well. So if you have specific questions or we run out of time today, then you can connect with either Jamie or myself about your questions.
Does anybody need help unmuting or have any questions? You can pop them in the chat too.
I have one question, ladies. First of all, excellent job. That was a great overview and a lot of great resources and things. I was curious on your the top or hot 50 jobs that you showed us through 2026 and when that was kind of developed, and has it changed dramatically in the last year since the COVID shutdown?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So don't quote me on when it originally started. It has not been a long time. I want to say it's maybe come out, it's been updated. Well, I think it's been around like 3 years or so. It's a newer initiative out of the state. It was updated post the pandemic starting, but I would argue, so the hot jobs that you can find right now for the state, not the region. So the regional ones are pre-pandemic. The new ones will come out, the new projections will come out here in the spring. So yet to be determined on, impact of pandemic on those projections. The state update through 2026 that you can find right now at that link that Christy put up at the beginning of the conversation was released in the fall of 2020. So during the pandemic, we did not see much shift from the previous sort of pre-pandemic projections. I have a couple thoughts about why that is, but I think it's going to take a while, right, for the impact of the pandemic to play out on the economy and job growth and job projections. Those things are just slow. So I think we'll see minimal impact even on the regional projections that come out here this spring. I'm not an economist, but just based on my sort of history in this work, and then I would imagine we'll start to see the real impact of the economic change in the coming year or so. That stuff just has quite a lag. It's the economy is sort of quick to respond from a financial perspective, slow to respond on sort of the jobs perspective. So it was sort of during pandemic, but we didn't see a ton of change from the projections that were pre-pandemic. Hopefully that's what you were asking.
Well, if there are any more questions, thank you so much. This was so helpful, and I think all of us benefit from the partnership that our schools and our communities share with them. So thank you for your expertise. We certainly appreciate it. And just so everybody knows, this is your opportunity now to jump into our third session.